stay. We'll just hold it. Hey everyone, we are going a little off of what my original planned schedule had been because I had a few beers earlier this week and was on the internet and saw a product that I wanted to buy and try. What we're going to do today is magically take off this panel and we are going to replace the Airbox cover. TST Industries WORX, I believe is the full line name. Makes a drop-in panel replacement that looks pretty cool. You actually can end up seeing the filter from the front panel, which I think will look pretty trick. And that's really easy to install. The other main benefit is that you retain the stock air filter. So a little bit better flowing, but still same filtration. You retain most of the stock Airbox underneath, so you don't have to move your air temp sensor or any of the other things in there. And it the biggest thing for me at least, is it retains the body mounting location, so you don't have floppy panels when you squeeze it with your legs. So as you can see, I've already taken off the panel. I think this is the biggest deviation from the TST instruction video I watched. I took it off with the 3 5mm here, and then I prefer taking it off with the body clips up top. Just poke them with a poker and then pull them out rather than taking out the 2 screws back here. You could do it that way, but then you're fighting with that panel flopping around, and I think it's harder to line this up when you're putting it back on than it would be to line up these. So that's the main difference that I've found so far with their instructions. So with that, I'm going to get a little bit better angle and we can continue on with the install. Tools, didn't mention that. 5mm Allen for removing the body panel. Little poker helps. And then we just need a number 2 JIS for the rest of the screws down here. All right, let's refocus. Whee! All right, once you have the body panel off, your next step is going to be 3 silver screws. So one here, and one down here. That's going to loosen up this entire plastic panel so we can get to the Airbox cover behind it. So 3 screws. There we go, that's number 1. Whoops, that can stay down there. That is 2. Let's see. I was a big fan while I have just a couple out to see if they're the same, and those are the same screws. Great. No need to keep track of which one goes where when they're both the exact same. All right, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but one easy way to tell if something is a JIS screw, which again, Japanese bike, you would think it is JIS screws. Let's see if I can get it on there. Right at the top there's a little dimple, and that lets you know that it is one. Just pro tip there. If you use standard Phillips in there, it'll probably work. It just has a higher chance of camming and stripping itself out. So now that we have a little bit of floppy room to play with, we're going to get 4 screws off. There's one here in this little circle cutout going back. There's another one here, and another one right here. Oop, that focus went out. Give me actually just 1 second. Let me grab. All right. Y'all know I love my Motion Pro T-handle stuff, but Vessel also makes some pretty nice JIS screwdrivers, and for these ones I think that might be a little easier than the T-handle. These ones are nice because they have a little bit of knurling on them, so you can kind of just grip the hole or turn it with both hands. And last one. Cool. And the whole thing just pops out. Oh, and I took the filter with me. Whoops. There we go. We'll put that back in. Cool. All right, let's compare the two real quick. Okay, so stock panel, TST WORX panel. Stock one, you can notice that the inlet on here is incredibly small. And it's a small bike, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but that's a pretty small tube going into your engine. Other things, it does have a little bit of a breather. If there's any blowback getting back into your airbox, that'll let it breathe out, or if it pulls any water in, that'll let it cool out as well. Just a little plastic one-way valve kind of thing, basically. Looking at the TST one, texture is similar, but this has a little bit more of like an orange peel to it than the stock Honda one. Color is pretty much there though. This is rear facing on your bike, where the TST is forward facing. I don't think that the Grom will ever go fast enough to get really any kind of RAM benefits from it, but I think from a visual perspective, it looks pretty cool. Mounting points are the exact same. Has the exact same kind of rubber grommet path in there that fits into your stock air filter. Just slides in like that. Yep. I think this is really what's cool about this filter. If you look at it from outside, you can actually see the air there. You know, your stock one is kind of that paper filter material. If you're riding in the rain, I don't know how it'll hold up. I don't know what TST did as far as testing for rain resistance, but I don't plan on taking the Grom in much rain, so I'm not worried about it. And there is a little bit at the bottom where it can kind of drip out if any water does happen to splash up in there. But really you're getting the full benefit of that air filter's breathability. You know, since it's a fuel injected bike and not a carbureted bike, I'm not worried about any lack of like draft pressure like you would need in a carbureted bike. Most carbureted bikes like a certain amount of resistance. This one, fuel injected, shouldn't have to worry about it. So buttoning it up is the reverse of install, so we're going to do that. And filmed a before sound, and we're going to film an after sound and see how the two compare. So I actually paused the time lapse there because I wanted to point out one thing real quick. The screws on the airbox are going into plastic bosses. They're not going into like a little nut clip like some of these other ones. When you're putting those in, you want to put the nut in, or the bolt in, and then turn it backwards until you feel it drop into the already existing threads. That way you're not cutting new threads as you screw these screws in tight. You're using the existing ones and you're not wearing out that boss much more quickly than you need to. So. tried to get it in about the same position. Let's see how I did there. Let's see what we hear. That actually makes a noticeable difference. See, maybe we can get it captured a little bit better. Well, off of that very quick test, I am tickled. So that's the install. That was extremely easy. It does, one thing I noticed is there is a little bit of contact with the body panel down here. That made it kind of difficult to line up this one hole. Not a big deal. Might have been, you know, if you took it back off and loosen those three holding that plastic panel on, maybe you could have adjusted it a little bit better so that this hole fits a little bit better. Doesn't worry me in the slightest though. All in all, it took me about 15 minutes if I hadn't been filming. Maybe. Like I said, a few tools, JIS screwdriver, 5mm hex, and the little button poker for the buttons. I love that it looks pretty OEM. Like if someone didn't know any better and was just looking, it would look like a stock intake. I'm not a fan of how the Chimera or the other intakes that kind of stick out to the side look. I like that this one again looks OEM and kind of fits with that like OEM plus vibe I've been going with on this bike so far. But yeah, that was a quick and easy one. It's about $80 from TST, and I think the noise it makes alone is kind of giggle inducing and worth it. So it's like, I know I said I wasn't going to touch the engine in my intro video or first video with the bike. I consider this half of an engine modification. TST says on their website that with just the airbox and the stock exhaust, you probably don't need to do a remap or a tune. I would probably agree with that. I think that the stock exhaust is restrictive enough to really not get any real engine gains out of this mod. It's mostly just for shits and giggles and the noise that it makes. If you do this and have an aftermarket exhaust, maybe consider going with a tune. And I'm sure that both mods would work better for you then, and you wouldn't run the risk of running lean on either one. So yeah, that's it. That's it for today. Well, that's it for this video. I think next I'm gonna start working on the turn signals. I got some more parts in today or yesterday, and we're gonna get going on that. And I will see you on that one. That's probably like right there, or maybe right there, or maybe up there. I don't know. There's a link somewhere. We'll see you then.